What's up, everybody? We finally did it. We're done. My name's Drew. This is the Future Strategy Gaming channel. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much. It's great to see you back. You're the real MVP. If you're new to this channel, do all the YouTube things, like, dislike the video. And if you're so inclined, hit that subscribe button. The quicker that we can get to 1K subs on this channel, the faster I can monetize this channel. And not so that I can make money, but so that I can hire a fucking editor and spend more time making content for you, because I absolutely hate editing videos. All right. Here we are. Endwalker MSQ is finally done, and I wanted to do a spoiler-free recap of this adventure that we've been on. Now, I will be doing a non-spoiler-free recap in about a week or so, just so that everyone can get done with it as well. But without further ado, let's talk about the easiest topic to start off with. So, server issues. We knew we were going to have server issues. That was prefaced ahead of time by Square Enix, so it's not like it came as a huge surprise. What we had was a little bit different. So let's talk about before you get into game. 202 errors were the most common for a lot of people, as you may have known if you read anything about it. If more than 17,000 people were trying to hook up to the data center, that caused an issue with errors. Me personally, I did not have an issue with having errors. What I did have an issue with, and this is something I didn't experience in other games, if the 202 error happened and you got kicked from your queue and then you tried to come back in and you didn't get back in fast enough, you were put to the back of the line. It's extremely frustrating when you have queue times. I'm on Gilgamesh on the Aether data center. When your queue times are 3-4 hours long at times, and then you get kicked halfway through, that essentially is telling you, the player, that you have to sit there and babysit your queue. That's not how it should operate. That was the only frustrating aspect of it for me personally. I knew there were going to be server queues. It's not a big deal to me. Also, and I feel bad for the people that weren't able to do it this way, not only do I work from home, I make my own schedule. So that being said, I was able to get up at 4:45 in the morning, my time, every day, and be able to get on without any issues. I think the biggest queue I found at 4:45 in the morning was 41. So I had no issues, and unfortunately at times, not every day, but I would say 30-40% of the days that I did play, after I got done with my allotted amount of time that I was playing, since I do work from home, I would just run back up to my office, move the character around, and avoid being kicked out. Yes, to a degree it is unfair for other players who are trying to get on there. I understand that. I'm also willing to take the flack, because as you know, everybody kind of dealt with it and more than one person was doing it. My one person wasn't me making sure that I stayed inside game even though I wasn't playing wasn't the reason that you weren't getting into game, let's be honest. Now, switching gears on that one, there was absolutely no issues for me in game whatsoever as far as lag goes. That's very uncommon for a lot of MMOs, especially during release time when you're getting the server stability. It was fantastic. Honestly, I could say nothing but good things on the server stability and how quickly everything was loading. When you're in game, and things are going well. I did get kicked one time. It was at peak. I wasn't in the middle of anything important, and unfortunately when I tried to come back in the queue was over 8,000. I just called it a wash for that day and decided to move on. It is what it is. Now, if they can manage to get this fixed up, I don't imagine the queue's going anywhere anytime soon, but if they can manage to get the 202 errors or the 2002 errors out of the way, people are going to be a little less frustrated. They've already gone and tried to make it right, so to speak, by giving you the free 7 days. For a lot of people, that might not be enough. I mean, I don't know. I don't work on that side of things. I don't know the technical side of things. You should have kind of knew it was coming, I guess is the best way I could say it. They've been talking about how they've been having issues getting new servers, not only installed, but in general, the physical servers. On top of that, they're trying to push out an Oceanic data server in 6.1 that will alleviate the EU, maybe some JP servers, as well as the NA for the people that do jump over to NA. It's probably easier for them to go to the EU. That will alleviate some of the queue times, but not that much. If my queue at Gilgamesh is 8,000, I don't imagine it's going to get lower than 6,000 from player migration. So let's get off the boring stuff. Let's move on to the next stuff. All right, let's talk about what's new. One of the main features that I noticed, and you will have noticed throughout the entirety of the MSQ, are the NPC follow quests that we have. You get one of the scions to follow you. It's not always scions. Sometimes you get characters that aren't necessarily main characters within the story that are doing it. The engagement during, being able to talk to them when you go to different areas and small little zones that they highlight in a way and have different dialogue is great. It's so small and such a non-impactful change, but the dialogue that you get allows for further world building, which I think is fantastic. It really just kind of gives you a sense of other people's thought processes that allow you to skew yours a little bit. You know, if you're walking around Old Charlian and you're trying to talk to Alice and she has a particular memory, you might look at her mansion and be like, holy crap, she grew up extremely wealthy. With her memories, she might say, hey, I didn't want to spend a lot of time in there because it was always too much of a museum to me. Just small stuff like that, again, not impactful, but really adds to that rich lore and that story building, which I think is fantastic. Moving on to dungeon mechanics. Again, this is going to be spoiler free. What I can say is we know that during the leveling process, there's always going to be 5 leveling dungeons, 1 dungeon at max level, and 3 trials. The dungeon mechanics and the trial mechanics, without getting too crazy, are new and improved and super clean. It is, you know, when I played through Shadowbringers, I was like, this is really the peak that they've been able to achieve as far as how difficult stuff is and how different fights operate. They have completely stepped up when it comes to Endwalker, and it's been fantastic to play. It has been such a great experience. Each dungeon has been individual and unique to its own right, whether it's the aesthetics and the attention to detail inside some of the stuff that you see outward or the actual fight mechanics. I think this is a top-notch expansion when it comes to dungeons. I have personally been able to hit those max level dungeons, not only the one that you get through MSQ, but the other 2 that you unlock, and those are fantastic as well. So they have really outdone themselves. This is absolutely a step up from Shadowbringers and something that I think is fantastic and only shows the promise that this game has and what we can expect in the future. Now, the voice acting has not only gotten better, but more of it. And I always like to look to the future, especially for something like this. We've seen a ramp up in voice acting, expansion over expansion over expansion. Where I start thinking is, financially speaking, they have caught so much additional finances from all of the influx of players that came in the summer of 2021. So that being said, that budget is going to go up, which means a lot of the cutscenes, and there are a lot of cutscenes. Yoshi P said it's about 50% bigger than Shadowbringers, and it felt that way. It took me a long time to get through this. The cutscenes themselves, it just means more of those cutscenes can be voice acted. They have that budget to go ahead and pay those voice actors to do even more. And I thought the amount they did in this expansion was fantastic. In my head, I'm thinking, holy crap, they can only get better from here. It was top notch, and I'm not going to say who my favorite character was until the next video, but it is not a main character. Honestly, I think I have 2 tied for my 2 favorite voice actors for this entire expansion, and they are not essential characters, if you will. So fantastic. Really appreciate everything that they were able to put into it. Really shows that all the voice actors, there was not a single flaw in my opinion when it comes to the voice acting. All of them really mastered their craft, and this felt really good as an expansion to hear all their voices and how they captured emotion that was displayed on screen during those cutscenes. So another one with Endwalker, we got new classes, Sage and Reaper. Now, personally, I haven't even unlocked Reaper. However, I have obviously done a lot of dungeons with them. That being said, they look fantastic and they really fit in well with the group. I really like the synergy they're bringing, and their toolkit really allows them to feel unique, but also feel like they've kind of always been there. So that's been kind of nice. Now, I leveled an Astrologian and a Sage through the entire MSQ. So I love Sage. I think they did great. I have extensive experience with the Disciplined Priest in WoW. While this does kind of have a similar mindset, the focus on damage is way higher in this one, and their toolkit feels really good. I'm going to do a Sage first pass video and then an in-depth Sage healer guide at another time. That'll probably come out on the channel in the next 2 weeks or so. But I can firmly tell you that I really think that the Sage is a welcome addition to how it functions and the playtime that it goes on. Yeah, sorry, sweetheart. Hi. Baby talk. Now, 2 other small things that we talk about when it comes to what was new in the expansion is the ground targeting. So this is something you had to go into your UI and actually change to make sure, as someone who has different spells that work on that, Now, when it comes to ground targeting, this is a fantastic quality of life change. Now, I know that the Dark Knights have Salted Earth drop at their feet. That's pretty easy and straightforward. But as somebody who had to move and operate where you wanted to put shields, I'm thinking about Scholar or on the Astrologian when you're placing your earthly star. Not being enraged just by a smidge is very frustrating, and this really allows you to kind of make sure that you don't excess that range and really allow you to put that stuff down a lot quicker. It's such a small change, but it really will lead to very impactful play in the future. So I'm really excited. And the other big one, and Yoshi P kind of talked about it a little bit, the Aethernet UI is awesome. There's one little weirdness to it when it comes to it. I don't know why when you're on it, and I'll put this up on screen. I don't know why when you're on it and you've got your list on your right and then you got your map, if you click your map and you click the specific crystal you want to go to, it'll just take you there right away, nothing else. However, when you click the list, which I think it shouldn't be like this, I think it should be swapped. When you click the list, not only does it move the map all the way over there, you don't teleport, you have to click it again. I think if you're clicking the list, you know where you want to go, so you click and you go, whereas clicking the map, oh, this could be the one I want to hit. It just seemed a little funky on that one. However, that little weird niche aside, I think it's fantastic. I think it's so great and so easy to utilize. And this is something that is, again, a quality of life improvement that we don't know that we needed and we got and we love it. So hopefully you feel the same way. Let's move on to the next topic. Now, without getting too spoilery, and I don't think I'll get spoilery at all, let's talk about the look of the new zones. So there are 5 new zones. We knew that was coming. It's not like I'm lying to you. Aesthetically speaking, I personally think 90% of it looks amazing. There's one little area I thought was just okay, not bad, but just okay. But I took an absolute ton of screenshots, not only with the different people that were following me during the follow along quests, but just in general. I thought, wow, one thing that other MMOs don't do really well that Final Fantasy extremely excels on. And my wife came in while I was playing MSQ on multiple different occasions and was just like, their artwork is so great. It's not the actual terrain that I think they do so well. It's the background, the stuff that you're never going to be able to access or go get close to, you know, is just awesome. Like, it's not only interactive in a way, but it is something that a lot of games use as an afterthought, and something that Final Fantasy goes, no, this actually amplifies where you're at right now, and we want to make this as good, if not better. And in a lot of cases, some of that background stuff is better than the stuff that's on the ground, and it was awesome. I honestly, I couldn't tell you how impressed I was going through all the zones and just being like, holy crap, the attention to detail is something that I really appreciate, and I'm very detail oriented. So that being said, this was something that I definitely really enjoyed. So the last one for the new zones in particular, the Aether Currents and how we went about achieving them felt substantially more linear in a good way. You know, obviously you use the compass to go find them. You can go click, very, very easy, very straightforward. I personally, after the first zone and how you go about unlocking the last Aether Current with a quest, knowing that, hey, once you complete this zone, this is how you get the last unlocked one. I made sure that everything else was completed before I ever got to that point after the first zone, because I realized that's how they were going to do it for the rest of the zones. So that being said, it just felt very easy to not only go through the MSQ, and they kind of led you close to all the Aether Currents, so that way you can just continue on the MSQ and make sure you're hitting that button wherever you have it for your compass to check it out throughout the queue. And they really did a really good job of making it linear, making it so that it was close enough to the MSQ so it didn't feel like you were going out of your way. And honestly, it felt easier than Shadowbringers. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I just have, I hope this isn't a spoiler for anyone who's not up to Shadowbringers, but maybe I just have PTSD from the Tempest. I think that might be fair. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. All right, let's move on to the next. So let's talk about pacing of the MSQ. Again, I'm going to keep the spoiler free. It was relatively a slow start, and in retrospect, I recorded every single cutscene. Now, I did make a little bit of mistake that we call a Drew mistake in this household, where I didn't realize that the sound for the cutscene wasn't actually working. There's other issues. I figured it out, and towards the end of the expansion, I was able to get it. Okay, so that being said, the story building and the pacing of the MSQ was a little slow to start, and I have gone back and started to watch some of those cutscenes to understand and comprehend a little bit more about why they were so slow. And what I found is it's world building. all of it is world building. And I find that towards the end of zone number 3 in this case, they really start to pick up the pace. They really are like, okay, it's time for us to move. Let's get going. The penultimate area started to slow down. I was getting a little nervous, and then all of a sudden you hit kind of that level 88, 89 MSQ area, and it just gets wild. It is fantastic. Obviously, I'll let you guys play through it and make your own opinions. I've got my own opinions on it that I'll talk about on the Best in Slot Radio podcast. Link for that is going to be down in the description. That's my podcast with 2 of my buddies, Ez and Knox. So let's talk about the MSQ. There is definitely, I know Yoshi P had said something differently. There's definitely enough XP to do 2 jobs simultaneously while leveling. I had a little bit of a different experience, so maybe I might be off just a little bit. I can tell you that I leveled two healers, Astro and Sage, up to a level 89, only having done the only weirdness I did. I made sure every leveling dungeon that we encountered, I would do it once with whoever just happened to be on the quest at that time, and then I would run it again right after that. As a healer, my queues are pretty quick, so that's not a big deal, but I wanted to learn that dungeon from both perspectives so I could use whichever. So that might adjust XP just a little bit in that situation. I think in total I probably did 8 fates through all of the zones throughout that entire one. And then as far as it comes to roulettes, I did frontline every day, and I switched off each day who I did. I had plenty. When I got to level 89, I turned in my Wanderer's Tales book on my Astrologian, and then spent the next 15 minutes completing the next one, turned that in immediately, and was level 90 on my Astrologian, and was able to do the rest of the MSQ on my Sage at 89, and it had more than enough experience. I got to, I think there were about 6 or 7 MSQ level 89s that I received absolutely no experience for, which, you know, in retrospect, I wish I had a 3rd class, but at the same time, I think Yoshi P saying, oh, this is enough to get you through once, it's enough to get you through 2, especially if you had rested XP through that. Now, as far as what I talked about in pacing above, in the MSQ in particular, there are some slower areas. And again, I think that goes back to A, they're trying to world build, and B, there really are some things going on during that you should absolutely have knowledge about. Not necessarily to make impactful changes, but you should at least know what's going on in the area itself. So I think that makes the pacing seem a little bit longer, when in reality, it's really not as bad as any of the other zones. I will say this. Yoshi P said that it was 50% bigger. The addition of all the cutscenes makes this very, very long. Unfortunately, there are a couple times when they say, hey, get ready, you're going to need ample time for these cutscenes. I have yet to find what that minute marker is that they talk about, that you're going to need this extra time, because I'm not going to say which quest, but there was a series of quests that took me 3 hours to do because of the cutscenes as well as the implications of what was going on. Like, I should have gotten a warning before that, because it's not like you can just stop in the middle of it. You had to keep going, and it was extremely long. So what I can also say, and the last thing about MSQ, is most of the community's predictions were wrong. And I love that, because it makes it so that it was so completely different than what the expectation was going to be. Obviously, there's some small stuff that people predicted that was relatively easy. The hardest one that got predicted, and I won't spoil this, but Larry Zor made a video that you should probably have watched if you haven't already. I'll link that one down below. Now, final thoughts on Endwalker. The personal connections that you start to develop with the Scions through the course of the MSQ, especially since they've put it into place that you make decisions on who to talk to in a specific order, feels really good. Feels really, really good, and allows you to connect with some of the characters that have good stories but don't have personal ties to you. I look at like Thancred and Justinian. I think they really up their game here, and especially with those follow along quests, getting to hear their personal dialogue moments is fantastic in my opinion. Fundamental human experience, and how this entire expansion kind of either changes your perspective or opens it up. Video games are typically not supposed to do that, and this one did. Like, I'm almost tearing up right now, and it really, I personally, for what I do in my personal life as far as a career goes, a big thing we always ask, what's your why? And Endwalker did it. Endwalker was asking, what's your why? What is your reason for doing whatever it is you're doing? And it's awesome. This has been a fantastic finish to a decade-long story. MMOs in general have never been able to close stories like this. They just kind of keep going on to the point where story stuff starts to get muddled. And this felt like a really, really good way to kind of close a chapter on a book, but not necessarily close the book. And I think that was great. I also think it was funny. I got to the end, and again, I'm not going to spoil anything. I started watching it, and the credit scenes hit, like where they roll credits of everyone who's worked on it, and the scale of that is fantastic. Holy crap, a lot of people worked on this. And I just remember like going to use the bathroom and looking at my wife and being like, man, I feel let down because I don't feel like they closed all the ties. Like I don't feel like they did everything. She was like, well, maybe that's because they have patches and more is going to come. I sat back down. There was another like 10 minutes of credits that I continued to roll, and I let that all roll through. And then they closed up all the loose ties. My hats off go to Square Enix for everything that they did for this expansion. Like I said, I'm tearing up right now. It was an emotional roller coaster that I was not expecting to experience. Shadowbringers was pretty good, but Endwalker was better. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Like I said at the beginning, do some YouTube stuff. If not, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.